5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
You're listening to Tabletop and Beyond with your host, Justin.
But before we get started, how was your Geek Week?
And co-hosts Dan and Jason.
You have to be willing to let the dice help you tell the story.
Okay, look, this year I'm going to stop mispronouncing words. Join us as we cover board games to war games and beyond.
And welcome back to Tabletop and Beyond. I'm your host, Justin. We got the full crew back today. Jason, Dan, how you guys doing?
Hey, good, man.
Well, hi.
We missed you last time, buddy.
Well, thanks. I missed you guys. It was an interesting topic, and I'm glad I got to listen. It was great.
The question that I have is, were you able to find the lost ancient tomb on your archaeological dig?
Right.
Because that's the only reason you would have missed, right?
I don't know what you're talking about, but sometimes my eyes glow at certain times of the night. And occasionally my hands turn to dust.
Ooh.
Wow.
And then they don't, so no big deal.
And then they don't. All right, well, Dan's the new villain in our horror book.
Everything's fine. I'm trying to scare you. No, okay.
Well, we got a good show today. We're going to be talking about running a local event, and this is kind of on the heels of the event that we ran at Huzzah or I guess it was 2 weekends ago, right?
A couple weekends ago, yeah.
Yeah, a week and a half ago. And we ran a tournament event there, but we've also done GuildCon like 2 years in a row. So we thought it would be interesting to talk about like how to prep and set up and run a local event and the considerations that you need in that. But before we get started, always, how was your Geek Week? Jason, let's kick it off with you, buddy.
All right, man. I finally beat Elden Ring.
Wow.
160 hours.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and I would say probably maybe 10 to 15 of those hours you could consider grinding. Like maybe working on a boss over and over again, or rerunning an area to try to get more experience to level up, runes to level up. But I mean, it was a solid like 140 hours of non-repeatable content. The game is massive.
I now know where you've
and I
been.
didn't, and I right, and I didn't even complete all of the game content. Like I missed like probably at least two optional bosses in one area. So pretty amazing. Now, I will say this, I was thinking about this the other day, and I think another reason why I have so many hours is of the co-op aspect. So if a friend would summon me and we would play through the area, I'm basically duplicating my time through that area because I play it on my own playthrough, and then I'll also play it with them in co-op. So that's probably something that also took the time. But at the end of the day, it's game time, right? So I mean, if you think about paid $50 for that game, and 160 hours. It's just, I mean, it's like pennies of per hour of entertainment. It's really, really amazing. Great game, awesome. There's so much lore. I'm so excited that I beat it now because I forced myself when I did my first playthrough. I says I'm not going to look anything up. I'm going to play the game completely blind and just have the experience. But now that I'm through my first playthrough and I went to my new game plus, I'm looking up all the hidden secrets and lores and how to do the people's quests properly. Like
nice.
Yeah. So now I'm excited to kind of go through and do different things that I wasn't able to unlock the last time I played because I was playing blind. So it should be fun.
I've just been meandering, and I think I'm just kind of at a point where I'm like, that was fun, I guess.
See, we gotta do co-op, man. That's really brings it to life doing co-op. The strategy, playing together, and just really fun.
Yeah, definitely.
My second thing was the Xbox Bethesda Game Showcase came out this week.
I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half, and I would say there's, like all of these, there's a significant amount of time where people are kind of standing talking, but the majority of it is actual like game reveals. So it's a real fun watch. Now I'll say, I don't really have an hour and a half to sit down and just at my computer and watch it. So I did kind of skip through every now and then. There's some games that don't necessarily interest me. But I tell you, there are 2 games that really stuck out to me. The first one, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen on YouTube, if you're into that dark stuff, is Scorn.
Yeah.
Scorn is right up my alley. I mean, just a gory, visceral, I don't even know how to describe it, dark. Nobody really knows anything about it right now. It's the story is very hidden. All it appears is like, some mutation, bodily mutation to try to survive in some, nasty flesh fortress. I don't know. It just sounds really cool.
So the funny thing about that is we sat down to watch like a family show last night.
Oh no.
And we're sitting around and like we're waiting for kids to come down after brushing teeth, and I'm like, oh, the Xbox Bethesda thing's going on right now. So I turn it on, and my wife's like, why did you go to YouTube? Like already, like she was mad at me that I wasn't like pulling up like Netflix or something like that. I'm like, just checking this out. It's not a big deal. It pops up, and it's like the theatric trailer or like the cinematic trailer for Scorn.
Oh,
and
man.
it's like gory.
It is gory.
Gory. Yeah. And my son's like, whoa, cool. And my wife is like, you will not be playing this game.
Yeah,
Nobody will be playing this game in this house ever. Like,
it's like the first time I was playing Gears of War. And the first time I chainsawed someone, my wife happened to be walking through the room, and she stopped, spun on her heels, and said, "What was that?"
Wah, wah, wah.
I mean, you remember how it was, right? Like the screen splattered, the guy went in half. It was great.
It's just a digital chainsaw,
like,
honey. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's an imaginary chainsaw.
Right.
The running joke in our house is like, oh, we'll just play Doom. It's fine. It's family friendly.
Yeah, there you go.
So
there you go. Well, I'll keep it short. The second one that's exciting, which I think a lot of people are excited about, is Starfield, which is it's like a Elder Scrolls or Fallout meets No Man's Sky meets Star Citizen. So it's still early on. Like if you watch all of the Bethesda games, Xbox Bethesda game showcase, all of the games look like they're running just like perfectly beautiful. Huge frame rate. Starfield's frame rate was significantly low, like noticeably chunky in the game showcase. So I think that game is still a ways off in terms of optimization. But
so they said September of this year maybe it was supposed to be coming out. Isn't that? Haven't you heard that? I heard that early on. I wouldn't be surprised.
No,
if
it's 2023.
Delayed.
It's they announced it as 2023.
Okay.
What they said was every game they showed is at a maximum 12 months out.
Oh.
So many of I think half of the games were 2022 releases and the other half were 2023 releases.
So the interesting thing about this Xbox and Bethesda game showcase is this is one that Xbox needed to hit a home run on.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Because with the merge, everybody had a giant spotlight on them to see how they were going to treat Bethesda or how Bethesda was going to treat them, right?
Yeah.
And so, do you think that they did a good job?
I think so. I think there's some key highlights there that show that there's good stuff. There was a lot of MOBA style stuff that I'm just not into, but I know there is a huge community for that, so I'm sure that hit that itch. They hit the RPG itch. Yeah. They hit the RPG itch. They hit the Diablo 4 itch. They hit the Forza Motorsport. So I think they covered what Microsoft has had in their bag and what Bethesda has been good at. I'm excited. I think they did a good job.
I mean, we know that Xbox had to buy Bethesda to counter the critique, especially in the next-gen console wars, right? Counter the critique that they don't have enough, exclusive first-person content that Sony seemed to be crushing it with, right? So they needed to come out hard with this Bethesda one to basically kind of reclaim some of that stuff that they lost during the Xbox One days.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm excited to look at it. I need to check it out.
Yep. All right, that's my Geek Week.
Dan, how about you, buddy?
Well, so much has happened. I know I haven't been on the show for a long time, but I am literally drowning in a sea of streaming riches when it comes to Stranger Things, which did the first chunk of episodes. They're doing 2 more episodes in July. And the first chunk of the season is amazing. So we're in a cliffhanger mode, waiting for the next 2 episodes. Strange New Worlds just hits all of my buttons. It's just such a winner show. It's the most refreshing Star Trek show I've seen since, I don't know, Deep Space Nine. And I'm not.
Wow.
I'm not.
That's pretty high praise, man.
And it's not like Deep Space Nine. It's more like the original series and more like Next Gen. And the format actually works.
More
And
like Orville.
Orville, I kind of give up on Orville just because it kind of because you're into it as a sci-fi show and then somebody's like making a dick joke and then you're like, okay, all right.
Yeah, I totally tangented. Yeah. Go ahead, go back.
So sorry, you got me talking Orville. I like Orville. I want to like Orville more, and now that it's on like Hulu or something, I can watch more of it. Anyway, Obi-Wan came out. I mean, this has been just. It's like a movie every week, and it follows up, and the characters are compelling, and they're characters we know and we're already invested in, and it's I'm the wrong person to have negative criticism about Obi-Wan because I can't think of any negative criticism. And
Don't
then,
worry, Dan. I'll think of some for you.
I'm sure all the nerd hate is out there. There's no shortage of nerd hate. Don't come to me for nerd hate. It's like the word fan comes from fanatic, and I am a fanatic. I am a fanatic. I'm an addicted fan. Yeah, not fan addict, but yeah, that too. So anyway, For All Mankind has been a great cherry on top. They just rolled out with their very first episode a few days ago. I know most of you all are not Apple TV Plus watchers, but Apple TV Plus is building up their own kind of content library of sci-fi between For All Mankind and from Foundation. And they have plenty of money to throw at that stuff, so it's so good. And Ronald D. Moore, I never get tired of Ronald D. Moore. So For All Mankind, every season they jump like 10 years in the narrative, which is cool. And they're in the 90s. They started off with the moon landing, and now they're kind of in the mid 1990s, which is awesome. So many great things to watch on streaming, and then it's going to empty out, and there'll be nothing, and I'll be like pissed. I'll be like, I guess I'm watching reruns, but it's so weird to have so many great options just like at your fingertips of new content of all stuff that I love, genre stuff.
Yeah.
So if you want to jump into any of those, I recommend them all. And Strange New Worlds, man, they got me on the hook for Paramount Plus for a few more months until that thing goes off the air, because I like it.
I'm glad because they kind of flopped with Picard season 2. They kind of flopped with I think they flopped hard with Discovery.
Yeah, Discovery had two. Discovery had a solid season 1, an outstanding season 2, and season 3 and 4 have just been a constant slog. It just feels like work. If it feels like work to watch a show, you're not going to watch it. So
right.
I kind of had to give up on it just a little bit for the time being.
Yeah.
But I might go back to it if I'm bored enough and there's not new content of things that I really like. So I might get that bored, but we'll see.
Right on.
Yeah. So, plenty of amazing sci-fi. I don't know if you'd count Stranger Things as sci-fi. It's more...
It's sci-fi.
It's horror,
sci-fi.
thriller,
It's sci-fi
sci-fi, and those kids are
I
great.
would say it's absolutely sci-fi, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the story's very different this year than the other 3 seasons, and so it's great. It's different and good and still scary and a little more gory, people. And there's horrible bullying. Like horrible 1980s bullying. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember the 80s. That was the golden age of bullying. So if you get triggered by bullying, don't watch the first couple episodes.
Interesting.
So anyway, I still love it, love it, love it. Now, my next item is I finally, after reporting for months on the World of Smog, Rise of Moloch, Jason and I and a few other friends played my very first game of World of Smog, Rise of Moloch. And I thought it was great, and I had a nice time.
It was a lot of fun.
It's kind of a combat-oriented game. You're counting movements. You're trying to optimize your action economy in order to not waste time. And we only played through the very first mission. It's supposed to be done in like 45 minutes. It took us 2.5 hours. But
Nice.
of course, we were kind of like, hey, what's the actual rule here? Let's not fake a rule. Let's find out the real rule.
Mm-hmm. We spent a lot of time reading the book.
Yeah, we were book diving, but nobody had ever played it before, and we had a big group of folks, so it turned out lovely.
Awesome.
And,
I bet those painted minis looked really good.
Yeah, they were awesome.
It dials it totally up a notch.
Definitely helps. Yep.
Yeah,
when I
for
go
sure.
online and watch like tutorials, I'm like, your minis look horrible. Your minis look dumb. So yeah, I'm hoping to get that on the table again soon. And it feels like it's one of those games where you set aside like 4.5 hours and do like 3 missions, with people and just enjoy because it's a story thing. And we kind of jumped into the game and didn't read the story. There's so much lore for people who love the lore. There's a lot of lore about what's going on. And we didn't even really have time to wade into that because it was a Wednesday night after work. And we were fighting the clock. But we played the game, and the game had decent bones, and it's worth your time if you're in the neighborhood of Rise of Moloch.
Very good.
That's my geek week.
Nice. Let's see. For my geek week, I'm just painting more terrain. I got to get these sets done because I have a bad feeling that when I reach out to the Nova Open and they said, sure, we're willing to donate 8 more tables worth of terrain. Here you go in boxes, assemble and paint them. So I need to get mine done now just in case that happens so that I have time to finish that.
All you have to do is get a can of gunmetal gray. Just spray paint, rattle can, gunmetal gray, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, right.
Or
all
not,
that
I'm
stonework.
And then just like splatter paint on it with a bristle brush from across the room.
Yeah, it's like neo art, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Go Jackson Pollock on it.
So yeah, I mean, I've been painting terrain. Like I got a bunch of stuff airbrushed last night, so I'm gonna work on it probably a little bit later tonight after our podcast even. But one thing that I'm doing is I just finished a bottle of airbrush thinner that I've had forever, but I think I'm gonna turn that into an oil wash bottle, where I will make my own oil wash, because oil wash is fantastic for terrain. It is so good. You just slap it on, and then you take a sponge and you just kind of wipe it off, and like it gets in all the cracks, and it gives it a nice like good look, and super easy, super fast. But the problem is that like I only have like a little tiny like makeup tray thing, with like those little tiny like holes. And so like making like a batch of oil wash every time like I run out of it, especially with terrain, is kind of annoying. So if I could make like a little bottle of it and then pour it out when I need it, I think that would be great. And that would help speed up the process.
Yeah,
so
I would paint more if I didn't require so much setup and cleanup.
Yeah.
It's like I can't just paint for 5 minutes and then go do something else. Otherwise, paint dries.
Yep. So, but yeah, I've been working on that, and all the while in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I signed up to do a capital palette model, and I haven't started it at all, and so I need to. That's for a competition, right? So I need to actually start painting that too, along with more models that I got for my Night Hunt army that I might be playing with the thing. So yeah, lots of painting on the thing, but that's not what I want to talk about for my second one. The second one that I did Geek Week is I've been kind of diving into the Warhammer Plus content. So if you are a Warhammer Plus subscriber, like it gives you access to the books and list building and like War Scroll cards and things like that for the Age of Sigmar game, as well as 40K. So you have those apps that help you list build, which I think that they started out rough, but I think that they're definitely a good tool now to use to build your list with the way that the games are. So I think that that's worth it. I got a free, quote-unquote, free model that was worth $50, and the Warhammer Plus was like $55 or something like that for the year.
Sell it on eBay.
So I'm gonna keep it because it fits in my orc warband.
Oh, good.
So yeah, so it's kind of a bespoke mega boss. So he's kind of cool. And then so I got that, but they also have like a whole bunch of like animated shorts that they've been putting out, as well as like battle reports for like Warcry and Kill Team and stuff like that, and they've got some Citadel Masterclass paintings where they, you can look on Warhammer TV on YouTube and see like basics on how to paint things, but this one will go in and teach you how do you paint glass bottles, how do you paint, gold trim on like a display version of like an Avatar of Cain type of thing. So there's some really good painting tips in there that I picked up on. That I said, hey, these are really cool, and all the videos are like 15, 20 minutes or something like that. So if I'm just chilling out, like waiting to pick up my daughter or something like that, then I'll throw it up. They've got an app on your phone that you can like open up, Warhammer TV, and just pop in a little video and watch that. So I've been kind of diving into that, enjoying the content that they have. One of the videos that they have is called Interrogator, and it is like it's like a film noir Warhammer style. So they're like in a hive city, which is like, like Los Angeles and Blade Runner. You know what I mean? Like it's like very futuristic, and there's like crime, and you're trying to find guys. So it's less Space Marine-y and orky and more like, the guts of the Empire, and it has a very Thomas Jane feel from The Expanse, kind of that detective feel.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool. I enjoy it. Just watch a couple episodes. So anyway, it's definitely worth it. If you have subscribed to Warhammer Plus and you haven't checked out that content, go do it. You also can get access to White Dwarf magazines that come out, which are like, the monthly subscription. You get basically a digital subscription for free. So definitely interesting things to check out.
I used to always like, back in the day when you would go to Games Workshop stores, whenever you would buy stuff, you could always say, hey, do you guys have any old White Dwarfs behind that counter? And they would reach down, and if they had them at like 3 months old, they'd just give you one.
Yeah.
And then I'd sit there on planes and just read through them and look at all the cool minis. They had battle reports in there that were really fun to read, and all that stuff. But yeah,
the White Dwarfs are really cool, and they've got like great painting stuff. And what we've seen too is like, for example, Warcry, they'll put out additional cards for new models that have come out. So if you want to play with some like for example, the Chain Rafts or the Night Haunt got a slew of crossbowmen. And they were a new model, but like it was too late for the book, so they put their rules in the White Dwarf that you could then play with them. So, but again, that's all part of the Warhammer Plus, $60 a year subscription, and I found value in it. I think some people don't, but I do, and I've enjoyed. This is all gravy to me, because the subscription to me is getting me the access to the list and the list building stuff and the rules and all that stuff, and then a free model, and then all this other stuff is just content gravy to me. So
cool.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, I think it's that time. We haven't had the news in a while.
Let's see if we've got some an awesome news reel.
I sure hope we have a great newsreel.
Yeah. See if Dan is.
I was on mute, man. I totally biffed that. I'm like, you guys, what? I'm trying here. Yeah, I was on mute. All right, Mulligan, everybody. Okay, here we go.
Wait, hold on.
3.
I think it's time for the news.
Better? Is that better? And now it's time for Tabletop and Beyond News. We'll go louder instead of quieter. We'll dial it down. All right, that was painful, everybody. I can tell I'm rusty.
It's okay, because you got a lot of stories up on the docket.
We got a lot of content. Okay, this is kind of cool for all you would-be game publishers out there who like Monty Cook stuff. Monty Cook Games announced the forthcoming Cypher System open license that'll allow publishers, gamers, and members of the public to freely create and market tabletop role-playing games compatible with and using rules from the Cypher System. So there'll be a core document, and you'll be able to reuse creatures, ciphers, items, artifact, variant rules, all kinds of stuff. So if, for instance, you have your own IP and you think that the Cypher System would be a really good fit for that Cypher was created for Numenera, but it's branched out into other things. So you can use the rule set. Sometimes People are just super tired of your classic D20 and they want to try something else and do something different. And Cypher is significantly different than most systems out there. So give it a try.
We obviously have had our opinions of the Cypher system, right?
Yeah.
We played it like once, right, Jason? I kind of feel like I need to play it again. And here's the hilarious thing. I love the Numenera setting. It was great, but the system I didn't like. But I wonder if it would perform better in a different system. I don't know.
Well, and you don't know. It's like, so for instance, if you've created a bunch of content and you want to publish under the Genesis license and the D&D license, and now you can publish under the Cypher System open license, and you can have all 3 versions on Drive-Thru RPG,
right?
And people can download what they want. So might be fun. Yeah, it's not my go-to, but I like the fact that what it does is it allows GMs to truly monetize their work. And if they're writing cool adventures, publish the darn thing. Make $20 off of it and make the world a better place. So,
yeah, I think there's a lot of indie RPGs that really benefit from an open game license because you'll have a few like diehard fans that will actually go out and write something for it, and then the community's better for it, right? Because like, how many times have you like picked up an RPG and you're like, well, this would be fun to run with my friends, but I got to do all the work in putting together a homebrew campaign, even a 2 or 3 shot campaign. If I had one ready to go, like, we'd just do it.
Right, and you probably most folks who are writing their own games should try to use somebody else's system first, just to cut that part out. Unless you're kind of a systems junkie. Getting people to adopt a way of playing your game and to have it be significantly different than what's out there is a super steep curve.
Yeah.
And every time they come out with one of these open licenses, it just makes it possible for somebody to go do something cool, put it out there, have other people enjoy it. So that's not like a barrier to success. But I know a lot of people love that system. And you know what? You're going to have the same thing. You're rolling dice against numbers. You're trying to, the dice are helping tell the story, yada, yada, yada. It's just a different way of interpreting all that randomization. And sometimes it works for you, and maybe this one works. Like, I swear, if I see another, like, dex, strength, constitution, charisma thing, I mean, I'm really going to fall out of my chair. But I'm kind of angsty about that, Yeah. So I like diversity and entropy. I'm kind of a fan.
Well, and Monty Cook is no slouch in the industry, right? Like, he's put out some really great stuff.
Yeah, like D&D 3.5, and he consulted on 4 and consulted on 5.
Exactly.
He gets this stuff. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I apologize.
No, it's good. It's good. So,
my most exciting, this is the excitement for myself, is Unfinished Business, the expansion for Star Wars Outer Rim. It was released, so everybody who had a pre-order got their stuff. So if you have the Star Wars Outer Rim board game, which I love, because it's Star Wars and because I like how it plays, this new pack is full of characters, ships, gears, bounties, jobs, encounters, dice, and lots of other stuff. It allows you to travel through the center of the galaxy because if you play Outer Rim, it's kind of like a horseshoe-shaped board. And if you're hanging out on the left side at the extreme and you have an opportunity to make money on the other side, making your way across the board is like a big pain in the butt. So now if you're cool with the Empire, you can cut across, which is cool. And it allows players to work together to do favors. And now instead of just accumulating fame points, like you have a fame tracker, you start out with fame 0 and you're trying to get to 10, 11, or 12, depending on how you set up the game. Now there's ambition. So now there's milestones that help you build that stuff up and give you cool things when you do build it up. And favors are really cool. Like you can make a phone call to another player right before a battle and get like a bonus or access to a skill or something, and then you hand them your favor token, and you guys can and players can keep track of everybody's favors that they owe each other. And they've done a really great job of using the existing board system that they already have without like totally they didn't overdo it on adding new components. It's like they leveraged kind of things that they had put in the artwork of the original, and they're like, okay, instead of that little being a little piece of artwork, put your token on that now. That's a place where you put this favor token, stuff like that. Another way that they maximized existing stuff is they only added 2 more characters. So all of the characters that you could play before, they've added 6 more characters or 8 more characters, but 6 of those were characters you already had in the game. And so instead of finding Chewbacca to be your sidekick, you can be Chewbacca and Han Solo can be your sidekick. And so that's kind of fun too. So if you're a nerd like me and have been accumulating minis, I have to play with the game. You only need a couple more minis to play. So that's kind of fun.
Nice.
I'm a huge
That
fan.
was my question. Is like, how many more minis do you need to buy, Dan, to be complete here?
Very few. They came out with a new starship that doesn't have a 3D model anywhere, but a bunch of the ships that they have added are already in the X-Wing library. Most of them are in the X-Wing library. So I think there's 2 of them I don't have. One of them just came out, like Cad Bane ship. I haven't bought that one yet. So now I have a reason to buy it, not for X-Wing.
Nice.
So, you know, they always put something in there that's like next to impossible to put your hands on, which means you got to go 3D print it if you really want a mini.
Right.
And that's kind of less fun than you'd think. So anyway, that's what is it called? Unfinished Business, and I'm excited about it. It's one of those games where the rule book has found its way into my nightstand. I'm like, I really got to understand these new rules. So, nerd alert. Yeah. So we should play that. I wish they would have added more players, but it's still just 4 players, and I think that's the only. I think if it had more
That's probably
players,
not a bad thing though.
it would
honestly.
slow down the game a lot if you added a
Yeah.
5th or 6th player. And
Yeah.
I get that. So anyway, next news item: Cool Mini or Not announced they'll be producing a Cyberpunk 2077 board game titled Cyberpunk 2077: Gangs of Night City. The game uses worker placement mechanics to simulate the struggle for control of Night City's underworld. Between rival gangs, each player takes control of a gang made up of a variety of members with their own roles to play, including solos, cyber warriors who fight other gangs, netrunners who dig up corporate secrets to exploit, and techies who deal with fixers and make deals. So it's a CMON game, which means it's going to have great sculpts, and hopefully the game mechanics are fun too. But by the write-up, I'm kind of interested in it. I wonder if they're going to kickstart it. I'm not sure.
Jason, did you ever get Cyberpunk 2077 on like a console or computer?
No, absolutely not. The thing was way too plagued with bugs and issues from the community for me to want to spend money on that thing.
So, same here. Apparently, from what I've heard, like it's doing great now, right? Like they need an extra year essentially to get it to where it should have been, and it's doing good. But at this point, I'm like, okay, well, I'm either gonna wait for one of those ridiculous Microsoft sales that happen, or wait for it to come to Games Pass, which it just may very well do, like The Witcher did.
Or play the board game.
Or play the board game. So, no, I was wondering if you had got that because, like, some people were, like, day one, like, all in it, and they're like, this is garbage.
Yeah,
So.
no, I was close on, but on when Cyberpunk came out, Google Stadia had a deal where you could, if you bought the Stadia setup, you got a month of premium for free, and Cyberpunk was on the premium. So you could have just paid $4.99, or if you already had Stadia, you could pay $4.99 or whatever it was, unlock premium for a month, play Cyberpunk, decide if you like it, then either beat it or don't or stop. So you could basically pay Cyberpunk for $5.
Yeah.
Right out the door. Well, then everyone started saying Cyberpunk's totally broke, and I said, pause.
And especially on the PC, from what I saw, right? Like it was more broke on the PC than it was the consoles.
Well, the consoles it was ridiculously unoptimized for the consoles. So like the frame rates were choppy in parts. It was just there's so many complaints about it that I just stepped back. And I think for me it's gonna be the same. It either goes on Games Pass or it has a ridiculous fire sale down the road sometime. But it's fallen off my radar.
Well,
here.
since we're talking about video games,
Yeah. All right. Nice segue.
Let's go there.
because we were talking about a board game.
that has a video game component.
Well, it was a board game based off of a video game.
I know. All right. New news topic. Cat Games, developer of the Pathfinder video games Kingmaker and Wrath of the Righteous, announced a new video game, Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader. Players will take on the role of a rogue trader, a class of privateers allowed by the Emperor to conduct trade within the Imperium using a gargantuan void ship of immense power. And there is a pretty cool trailer if you go to roguetrader.owlcat.games.
Yeah.
And there's some great 2D animation intermixed with some of the gameplay 3D. Mm-hmm. So I thought the 2D animation was compelling, and based on what Justin said earlier about what's available on Warhammer, it sounds like they're getting into cool 2D animation for content. Yeah. I thought this was unique, and apparently it is not.
No, it's unique. The interesting thing about this game, I mean, Warhammer's planning a bunch of video games coming out. Space Marine 2 is coming out soon. You've got the Dark Side, which is kind of like the Left 4 Dead style 40K game that should be out in September. You've got, I think there's a Battlefleet Gothica, which is like a ships in space game that's coming out. And maybe even another Total War Warhammer expansion. Anyway, this is one of the games that's coming out, this Rogue Trader game, and this is kind of a tactical-based, I think it's a kind of XCOM style game.
Yeah, it's billing itself as an RPG, whatever that means.
Yeah. So, but it might be like a Final Fantasy style game or an XCOM game. I couldn't tell exactly. Some people are saying it's XCOM, but I think those are people that are overexcited and full of speculation. So, we'll see. We'll see what it's like. The gameplay looked a little like Final Fantasy style to me.
Yes.
So,
from what I saw, prepping for this, I also liked. I like the fact that it felt consistent with the lore, because we did play that Rogue Trader game. You played it longer than I did, but I liked the fact that I could recognize different roles that were in the, you've got the who's the sidekick who does all the business all the time. What's the name of those guys? Like there's always
Seneschal?
The Seneschal, right? It was clear who the Seneschal was in the animation.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, I know that guy's job. So stuff like that was interesting to me.
That's very cool.
So it looked kind of fun. So anyway, that's out there. And you've got another news item for us.
Yeah. So a big announcement kind of came out today, and this is one that I think touches on you, Dan, a little bit. So the Warhammer community announced in an article today that a new era of paints came out. So it's new contrast colors, some reformulated shades, and apparently a new white spray, which they needed a new white spray. Their white spray was garbage before, so that's why everybody got the ivory one, and used that. So they have a new white spray. Hopefully it's a little bit better. But there is, I'm going to link this article into our chat here so that you guys can see just how many paints they're coming out with. It is a lot. So for the shades, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different shades that are coming out. Those are like washes, basically. And I'm curious to see like if they replace like Agrax Earthshade or Nuln Oil or something like that. Because they've got some that seem to be like overlapping. And we'll kind of see that. But they've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 25 new contrast paints coming out.
I think that's great. The more the merrier. I like Citadel contrast paints. My default is the army painter stuff.
Absolutely.
I like the way they flow, and everybody's like, they work kind of like oils that you can reactivate colors that it should be dry that aren't, right? And that should drive some people crazy, but for me, it made life fun and interesting. But I do like Citadel. I own several of those, but I did also fill out my entire army painter set because I got the original set, the small set.
Okay.
That had a couple dozen in there, and I didn't get the full $100 version. I got the smaller $45 version. So I've onesied and twosied paint selection of Army Painter to get the full palette,
Nice.
but it has not been easy. They sell out all the time. So
Right.
it's like I had a cart going. I was on Miniature Market, and I had a cart going that had a bunch of the paints that I wanted to fill out the palette. My wife says, "You don't need any more paint." And I walked away from the cart. The cart came back. Everything had been sold out. So I like Citadel contrast paint because it's much easier to get your hands on it in a store.
Yeah.
I have been to many stores, and I have purchased it at game stores.
Yeah.
And if I had a really good list of stuff that I didn't have, if I walked into a store, I'd probably pick up one or two just to put money in the hands of a friendly local gaming store. But I got this gigantic 3-tier thing that I thought I would never run out of space for my little bottles of paint. It's already full up.
Yeah.
I already have too much stuff, and a lot of that's because I have to transfer all of these Citadel pots into the bottles,
Dropper bottles. Yeah.
the dropper bottles.
So the thing is they came out with 25 sensational new colors to make painting creative schemes easier than ever. But I'm looking at this. Are you looking at the chart, Jason?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking at it.
Look in the middle. You've got Croxigar Scales, Frostheart, and like Pilar Glacier. Like these are all shades that are like so close to each other that you're like, why do we have like 3 of them? And like Iron Jaws yellow and Bad Moon yellow, it looks like the exact same yellow. Like the Acerman blue and the Celestian blue, I guess maybe like one's a little bit thinner than the other, but couldn't you just get their medium and thin it out? So I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I have some contrast paints, and I've used them for various projects that I have. Like, let me tell you, the Skeleton Horde contrast paint has made painting all of the bones on this terrain like
totally.
amazingly better
Yeah,
and so
do
much
it.
faster, and so like it's great. But man, like to pick up all of these, there's like so much duplicate. Like the Briar Queen Chill versus the Pilar Glacier seems so similar that you're just like, really? Like
I think if you scroll down on their main page and you look at the close-up of the models they painted with the Briar Queen Chill and the Glacier, there you can see the subtle difference. And I think that's the key of the Citadel line, is to give you subtle differences in pigment so that you can decide what look you're going for the flexibility. Here's the thing, right? Like, I like Citadel paints. I think they're overpriced, my opinion, but I think that they are great looking paints. So you get what you pay for. I don't own all of them. I only buy what I need.
Yeah.
And I think that's how anyone should be with Citadel paints. Don't go out and just buy them
Buy a
to
whole
have
rack.
them. Buy what you need. Buy what you need as you're building your
Which I
army.
did for Army Painter because they were $3.99 a bottle, and
Yep.
it was the same ml, same milliliters.
If I was just going to call out 2 that I'm excited for, I think that the Gargax Sewer.
Oh,
is
you
gonna
took
be-
that one away. That was mine.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
That-
that.
That one's going to be super useful for doing, like, grimy metal stuff.
Yeah.
up
Or even
front.
like some like weathered leather.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It would work potentially well with that too. I think I'm curious. You can't really see it in the picture. I'm curious to see what the rattling grime looks like
That's true. Yep.
when that gets up there. But yeah.
Yeah, some of these shades I've been able to get. I was able to get like the Garagax Sewer just by mixing contrast paints together and just getting lucky. And
Right.
if I had to go back and do it, I wouldn't know how to do it. I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
But
I've
now
made
I could
those
just,
mistakes
like-
so many times.
I could just I could just buy that one and it's fine. Right, like I painted, like Ryza Moloch has a lot of metallic, kind of coppery, brassy, kind of dingy surfaces. And I used what looks like rattling grime and Gargax Sewer, and I was able to mix my way into that and just get lucky. And now you can just buy it in a bottle.
Yeah.
But getting a pram that had a baby alien coming out of it to have that 1800s kind of look, that kind of dirty Sherlock Holmes metal look was tough. But this is pretty awesome stuff. I'm glad they're doing it because, frankly, this stuff sells out real fast. And if they're making more, there's more in the universe. And if there's more out there, you're more likely to find what you need.
I'm excited to see what the Black Legion one looks like, and the reason I say that is that I've heard there's a lot of criticism about the blacks and grays of the current line right now. So that would be kind of interesting to see.
I can see why they're
Yeah.
showing off their purples, because generally purples are hard to reproduce in miniature paints. They're difficult. It's difficult to land that pigment, and these guys have done a really nice job. I'm kind of excited about it. So, you know, there's some blue, purpley, and deeper things to play around with that are harder to put your hands on in more standard generic paint palettes.
Jason, did you see the Orc Killican on like further down the page with the Gargant sewer?
The Orc
Killican.
He's just painted
It's
one
like
color.
the Orc. Yeah, so it's down next to Sigvald Burgundy, and the Mega Boss. But it's a total metal thing with the Gargant sewer, and it looks amazing.
Oh no, I haven't seen that yet.
It's the fourth group down on the page.
In the Steadfast and Grounded.
Yes, and right on the right.
Oh yeah, the thing painted with Gargak sewer.
Yep,
Right.
yep.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yep,
Okay,
sorry.
yeah. No, it looks amazing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that's going to be a very useful contrast there. I look at some of the others and I think, okay, you know, but that one looks super applicable across lots of range of models.
Right.
There's a lot
Especially
of
if you want a
very
grimy one.
there's a lot of very happy colors that they've come out with.
Yeah,
These are
right?
very kind of rainbow bright, see the shining
Yeah.
light colors, and I wasn't expecting that. So I don't know. It seems like an odd approach for them. But
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. I don't think you will see anyone paint their full model. I think this is just a representation.
they're just the way
of-
so you can get a feel for how the paint dries and settles and goes
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
cracks.
So yeah, if you're looking for a way to paint models quick, or if you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm really bad at painting, like, they've got all sorts of colors in here, and I would go check them out. Like, because I think contrast is a great way for novice painters to jump in and feel accomplished in getting their models painted. Right? Dan is our living witness of this.
I am, and it actually made the painting part exceptionally more enjoyable, and I'm glad I did it. I still just only Zenithal primed my Warcry minis, and I'm still looking askance at them across the room going, I guess I need to paint you someday. So, I haven't got that far yet, man, with my Warcry box.
Those half-naked she-elves won't paint themselves, Dan.
They're she-elves and they're Medusas. What are they called again? I can't remember.
The Melusai.
elves?
The
Oh,
Melusai.
Yeah. I'm having a hard time ginning up enthusiasm to finish those for some reason.
First step is putting them squarely in your painting table.
They are. They're sitting out there. I also prime minis from 2 other games. I'm like, wow, I need to start on those.
Yeah. Oh boy, I see. You're like the living embodiment of the meme of the dude looking at the other girl, right?
I hate the fact that I had to make a meta call and lock it into glue on the model. Like that really bothered me at a lot of levels. I'm like, so I'm going to glue a piece of plastic on this model, and then now its stats are changing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put them all in the fire and melt them.
I think we found Dan's bridge too far, Jason.
I'm like, don't make me glue in meta because now I can't change them. You can change them. You could buy another $80 box and glue those together. I'm like, oh, jeez.
Well, here's the nice thing about Warcry, and I will say this, is that, that list that I gave you of all the models to assemble, you have all of the lists that everything that you need to build a good list in there, because you're not going to use all the models in your warband. So,
yeah, I know. And that was part of the problem is that I needed your help to do it.
Yeah. It's okay. It's fine. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. I'll stop.
I was going to say, speaking of Warcry, we just ran a Warcry event.
Now we're
Brings us
transitioning.
to our main topic.
Yes, we did.
Justin poked the bear with me in Warcry, so I'm sorry. I went down that rabbit hole.
So, let's see. It was on June 4th. We ran a Warcry tournament at Huzzah Hobbies. We were hoping to have a little bit more of a turnout, but we did have 4 players come. and it was a great little tournament, man. We did round robin style, and everybody got to pretty much play everybody, and we had a lot of fun. If you're interested in that recap, we did a whole recap on it in our Winnie Warcry podcast that just came out just the other day. Go ahead and check that out. It's the episode previous to this one. So if you want more details, but that prompted us to think about today's topic, which is what's it like to go into the planning and execution of an event. And we had said at the beginning of the year, if I'm not mistaken, Jason, that we wanted to run like some events. Mm-hmm. And we had just come off of doing GuildCon, so we kind of had that in the back of our mind. But we've already accomplished goal number 1, at least, of running an event this year, and we'll be doing more as we get closer to the Nova Open and some other things. So, so let's talk about it. Like, planning and running an event, like what's the first thing that you want to ask yourself when you're planning an event, do you think?
Well, how big do you want the event to be? That's going to drive a lot of what happens.
Yeah.
How big, and what's the outreach you want to expose the event to?
Yeah.
Are you looking for a local community? Or are you looking to try to pull people in from outside? Is just friends, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it's kind of the approach we took with GuildCon. When we started with GuildCon, it was let's all get together and play, and friends can invite friends, and those friends can invite other friends, and that's how we'll go. We'll grow organically versus posting flyers and to forums and Twitter and stuff like that. We'll just, we'll go by word of mouth. And we had a great event. It was a small event, somewhere around 30 folks.
Yeah.
And everybody knew someone that was there. So you have this, in that kind of a scenario, there's a vouch. People can vouch for each other.
Right.
You pretty much are going to feel maybe a little more comfortable with people that show up. You're not going to get randoms that you don't, know what kind of character they have. So it was a little bit more of a local feel, and that's one of the benefits that's there, with a little bit of growth into new friends. So I think that's maybe one of the first things you want to explore is how big do you want the event to be, and do you want it to be a local outreach, or do you want to spread the word to try to get people to come from other areas?
Yeah, I think like all those points are excellent. I think you have to ask yourself what kind of event are we doing, right? Like, is this like a mini convention like our GuildCon was, that you've got a lot of different games that are going? Is this a single threaded event like a Warhammer tournament or something like that? We'll get into kind of some of the pros and cons and kind of how to run those in a little bit. But you do have to think about like what are you trying to do here, right? Because our area in the Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. area is a very good hub for Warhammer Age of Sigmar. So if you plan to put on an event, expect 30 people to show up, if you can hold them all, right? Like, easily. Maybe if you could hold even more than that, expect even more, because like the word will get out in the community and easy to get there. If you're holding just like hey, we want to just do a friends and family kind of RPGs and board games and stuff like that, well, that's going to change the decisions that you make and how you approach it. Like you said, maybe more word of mouth. Easier communication between the different parties, and make it easier to figure out schedules and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I think you have to like what are you doing? Are you trying to build a community? Are you trying to tap into an existing one? Is this for you and your buddies? Like, you got to decide like what you're going to do in the beginning. And I think part of that is that you can do this alone if you want to, but I don't recommend it. You should involve other people in the planning and execution of this, because even a small thing could easily get out of hand for you. Too much to do, right?
If you're gonna get to something that's an actual event versus just game night at my house,
right?
Then you're gonna need some help, a friend or two to kind of review what's happening and going on, and which I think kind of gets to the next thing that you probably want to address once you've figured out what am I trying to do, how big do I want it to be, is where do I host it?
Right. That's kind of like the big question.
Mm-hmm.
I think that question will put limits on your event more than anything else. Don't you?
And
Like if you're like, I want to host a big tournament, but you don't know where you can do that, that could put a huge limit on how many people you can have.
yeah,
there,
so
right?
so there are a couple options that should be readily available to everyone, unless you live, maybe really in a rural area, in which case you just kind of have to deal with what your community centers provide. But obviously there's your house or
Yeah.
a friend's house that has a basement, and you can get it. You can on a game night you can cram a lot of people in. I've been to game nights where the whole house is taken over, and every room of the house has tables and chairs, and people are just kind of wandering around that night, and that kind of works okay. But the other two things that I think are important is obviously your game stores. A lot of those game stores
Yeah.
are going to have room, and I think maybe we can jump back to that. Actually, let's talk about that for a second, right? Because you used the game store to host your tournament,
Right.
and the game store was very open and amenable to having your event, right?
Yeah, so they were super helpful. Huzzah was great to work with for this event. And what happened is that I just reached out to them and I said, hey, I would like to host a Warcry event on Saturday, June 4th. And they looked at their schedule to make sure that there wasn't a big like 40K or Age of Sigmar tournament or Star Wars Legion or something that was going on. They cleared the schedule. They said, nope, it's no problem. How many tables do you want? How many people do you anticipate? Right. So I kind of gauged, maybe we'll have like 8 people. We need maybe four places or something like that. I think I even put 16 out there as a wish and a dream. But anyway, so they reserved enough tables for us. And their kind of thing that they explained to me was that, look, we are happy to have you here. We love having people come into the store. What we ask is they wanted to know what my breakdown of the fees were, even though Huzzah was not collecting the money for me. I was collecting it through the Best Coast Pairings app for the event. And they wanted to kind of know what the breakdown of the fees were because they're hoping that you spend money at the store, right? Like they're hosting you for free. They're not charging per table. They're not charging per person. I'm charging as the event. And we used like 50% prize support, and the other 50% went to cover some of the cost of the boards and terrains and models and stuff like that. But the 50% of the prize support, like I went and got a bunch of gift certificates that we handed out for the store that were the prizes, right? And so that ended up being like the quid pro quo for them hosting is that people then would spend the money in the store, right?
Mm-hmm. The winners that get the certificates are going to do it, and then anyone else who comes to the tourney is probably going to get excited about the gaming they're playing and potentially look around to browse content too. So, like all these kinds of stores, the way to move content is to get people in your store. So,
Right.
I think the takeaway there is that game stores are incentivized to help you host events, and so don't be afraid to reach out to them. I think.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. I was gonna say I would put in a word of caution that if they ask for a bunch of upfront money, be careful there. Do you know what I mean? Because you could easily lose a bunch of money on a tournament, if they are asking for upfront money to like reserve tables and things like that. That may just be how they work. So you gotta look into the deal and make sure that you know. But most of the game stores that I have dealt with, that I have played at, that I have been to for these events, welcome you for free. They kind of just expect that you're going to spend, gift certificates for prizes in the store, and other people are going to buy stuff there. Usually, I'm picking up at least a pot of paint, maybe a couple of models, something like that, because I'm in the store, right? Like you said. So, but I'd be a little cautious if a game store was like, oh yeah, well we're going to need a deposit and like all that, like. I don't know.
If they go that route, then you could look at kind of the last bullet in this section we have, which is rented space. If they're going to be asking you to put down a deposit, I would say look at renting a space. And I think a lot of people, at least myself initially, you shy away from this. You think, oh, I got to go rent a conference room in a hotel. It's going to cost me like $200 in a hotel, not in a big city. But here's the thing I'll give you. Like, look in your community centers, right?
Right. Yes.
Like, for example, my community that I live in has they have a community house, and that community house you can rent it. It's like $80 or $90 a night to rent, and we could probably put like maybe 15 tables up in that thing, and so it's like think outside the box. Local firehouses. A lot of times, if you live near the firehouse, when I say fire, I mean like the actual fire department. Sometimes they have or like they'll have community
spaces, right?
Spaces that you can rent to, and those are typically cheap too if you live near them, because they consider you being part of their community. So don't be afraid to look at that, or that's where your buddy can come in that's helping you plan the event. Maybe look in their area as well.
Yeah, and if you know a veteran, the VFW halls, right, Veterans of Foreign Wars, or even the American Legion ones, you can get those for pretty cheap. Believe it or not. And sometimes they'll have tables and chairs that you can use as part of the hall, right?
Yeah.
So I think looking at renting a space, like, you're like, oh, it's going to cost money. Well, you know what? Like, if everybody chips in, it's actually not that expensive.
And if it does cost money, then you can start to think about, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to do a big event or a small event? And if you're trying to do a medium to big size event such that you needed either a game store, you need to rent a space, then you can start thinking, kind of our next part of this topic is, what about tickets? Do we charge people to come, or is it just free for all? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the tickets, I think you should always have tickets, believe it or not. I think no matter what event you have, you should always have tickets. You need to know who's coming to your event, right? So whether you do a thing through Eventbrite where you can, basically charge for free tickets, or some other online booking system or whatever, like you need to know who's coming so that you can plan, right? Like if you plan for 30 people but only 8 registered, well, you're probably, you might have a few extra walk-ins that might come in that, would then get a ticket, but you're probably not going to be hitting the 32. You might be closer to like 12.
And I think this is really the difference between just having a game night at your house and actually hosting an event, is you need to really have sign-ups, have some scheduling so that you can see people that are coming, to get a real scope of what it's going to be. Not just show up on game day and hope that people told their friends, and then you don't know if you're prepared or not for how many people walk through.
Yeah, totally. And I think free tickets, there's plenty of online booking softwares, like there's Eventbrite, there's Sign Up Genius even that you could do, right? There's what was that one that we Book It? Was that the one that we used for the last GuildCon?
Book It sounds right. Yeah.
I think Book It, which had, it was good, but it had some of its flaws, but I thought it was actually pretty good, but and it was free. So there's a lot of free tools out there. There's even more paid ones if you want to do like a paid service that really can like make your event go really well. Like GuildCon, for example, has a paid service that they use to do all of their tickets and event ticketing because they're so humongous, right? It totally makes sense.
You mean Gen Con?
Gen Con, sorry.
Yeah.
We're GuildCon.
We will be there. We will be there one day.
One day. One day.
But Dan, I think you told me about a convention in Texas, right, that runs it through Kickstarter?
This is the Gamer Nation Con if you are in the Plano, Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've known the guys who run that convention. They have done 7 conventions. They would be up to about 9 now if it wasn't for COVID. Their primary source of funding is to do a Kickstarter. They started out in game stores, and then they upgraded. Their last one that they did was at a Marriott. So these guys just started out as podcasters, and then they moved into convention guys, and that's their main bread and butter. They also have a podcast network, the Gamer Nation, which has some great podcasts. I used to be on one of them a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So if you want to check them out, they're great. Like I said, the gentlemen who run it are very community oriented. The Gamer Nation is their family, and they take everybody's participation really seriously, and they do everything they can to keep. And this is another important thing if you're thinking about running an event. One of your goals could be community based. It could be building a stronger gamer community in your area.
Yeah.
And they've been able to do that, but they've also been able to draw in their friends of friends, get people to come from across the country, people to come from Australia, and they've also been able to use their network of game developers to bring in some folks who have written high-end things, and that's been cool too. for only doing 7 conventions to have the kind of celebrities is just a real testament to what you can accomplish if you really kind of invest and get lucky and work hard. And these guys worked really hard to build their community and their convention up. So I'm kind of a huge fan of theirs, and they've done a great job. I never go to their convention. Would you like to know the reason why?
Yes.
They always run it on my wife's birthday weekend. They picked that weekend in April, and no matter what happens, I can't go. And so I would have flown to Texas many times and enjoyed.
You just need to send her to Disney for her birthday, and then you go to Texas.
Man,
Or take her to a gaming convention for her birthday.
Yeah. Wah, wah, wah. Yeah. So anyway, so really the sky's the limit. You know, we mentioned at Catacon a lot of times that started out as a basement thing, and it grew into using the Dayton Convention Center in not that many years. So it's probably easier to build up momentum than you probably think if you're filling a gap in your community. If your community already has a lot of great options, then your mileage may vary.
Yeah. I think, sorry, I was going to say that I think it's interesting, like, the Nova Open has, they normally have, 12,000 people that come, maybe 20,000 people that come to the convention.
I thought it was
throughout the weekend.
4,000 or 5,000.
Oh, maybe.
I thought it was in the single. I don't think they cracked double digits, but I could be wrong. I hope I am, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Anyway, but they've got several thousand people come, right? I'm sure this Gamer Nation convention's got quite a few people that come as well.
It's in the hundreds.
You know,
I think I've watched their thing grow, and they're probably in the upper hundreds.
Okay, so you're looking at two different approaches here. In order to have the Nova Open, you have to have the venue, right? This is a chicken and egg thing.
Yep.
That is always a constant tension about planning events, right? So, in order to have the Nova Open, you need to have the venue. You need to have enough room for all of the tables that you plan to have. You kind of forecast how many people you think are going to be coming to the event. And then you basically put the deposit down because otherwise you wouldn't have the space. And then you open it up for tickets and registration and hope that they fill up, right? And if they don't, you may not be making nearly as much as you thought you would on the tournament, and hopefully you have enough to at least cover your bills, right? The Gamer Nation folks, they kind of took a different approach. They said, we'll start the convention if we know that we've got enough money in the bank, where it's like we'll do a Kickstarter.
Yeah.
If we hit a certain funding amount, then boom, it's on. We're good to go.
And they have hard cash in hand for the venue, so they can put deposits down.
Yeah.
And they can start lining up food. And one of the other things we haven't really talked about yet is if you're putting on an event over a significant amount of time, human needs are important. So that means bathrooms and food. And sometimes you can underplan both of those areas. So before, I'm not throwing VFW under the bus or anything like that, but imagine you say, oh, this is going to be great. And then you get there and you realize, oh no, we have a single point of failure in the porcelain. So I've never been to a VFW. I'm just throwing that out as a potentiality.
So I think the VFW has plenty of bathrooms, but what they may not have access to is a lot of food.
A lot of food, yeah. You know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your point stands, right? So, Jason, how do we handle food at GuildCon?
GuildCon was we did it through Sign Up Geniuses.
Yeah.
We used Sign Up Geniuses to find out how much people were coming, and then we had a separate one that was bringing food and snacks on certain days, and some people are just gonna grab something from the grocery store on the way there, but I think we actually had scheduled specific meals. So one day we had chili dogs, the other day we had hoagies, another day we said we're just gonna all do pizzas and put in for pizzas.
Yeah.
So we did a sign up.
Yeah, I think our plan I thought was pretty good because we had democratized the lunches. Right, so it was kind of like, all right, you people are in charge of Thursday lunch, which are going to be sandwiches. So I'll bring the meat, you bring the buns, you bring the tomatoes, that type of thing. Same thing happened with the chili dogs, right? You bring the buns, you bring the chili, I'll bring the hot dogs. that kind of thing. And then dinners, we basically said we're gonna go get something, right? Or we'll have it like DoorDash to us or something like that. So it was kind of up to the people. Like, okay, you 4 people. I think like 4
Do
of
what
us
you
went
want.
to Mezza and got like some good Middle Eastern food bowls. Somebody went to Chick-fil-A. Somebody went and and then we all decided, I think on Friday, like we're all just gonna pitch in for pizza for that night. So it was not a spur of the moment thing. Which, if you go to Gen Con, Jason, you and Dan too. Like,
Yes, Justin.
yeah, I know. I'm going to Gen Con too. If you guys go to Gen Con, like you need to kind of think about like, okay, well, what am I doing for my food, not what is the group doing for its food, right? And and we had to plan it out for GuildCon to make sure that like we weren't just standing there being like, well, I'm really hungry, but
Well,
I don't know what to
GuildCon was
do.
in a house, right?
Exactly, true,
Gen
yeah.
Con's at a convention center, which is built to provide those amenities to people. So there's food. There's a whole street full of food trucks. There's restaurants inside. There's snack bars inside the exhibit hall. And I would say on one hand, when you do a convention when you do pick an area that is near whether it's just a mall or a shopping area, it kind of solves the food problem for you a little bit if you pick it right. I think in Gen Con, it's such a huge event. The convention center probably just provides those amenities, and the convention center takes the cut on the food that's there. I'm guessing that the Gen Con event gets nothing from that.
So I used to host a big rugby tournament, and we had something like 40 teams come in and play in a big all-day tournament, right? And we were at a certain park, and they had a preferred vendor, and it was just easier for me to be like, hey, preferred vendor, come bring your food. And they had like a big food truck and stuff like that, and like plenty of food for everybody that wanted it. And I saw, like, as the organizer of the tournament, I saw no profits or expenses or anything from it. Like, that was just their business on the side, and I just said,
sense.
check, it's an amenity because that I have that I don't have to worry about, and I didn't get a cut from it, which is fine because I didn't have to worry about any of it, right? So I think the convention center is probably the same way with like a lot of the food trucks and stuff. They're like, come and give the people food. It's totally fine. You do you. But it brings more people in because they don't have to like go that far to find food.
And you have to realize that food can be a single point of failure. So you could say, oh, we got one food truck to come, and then if you've scheduled it so everybody's hitting that truck simultaneously, or everybody's hitting the pizza place next door, and they don't have the oven. Let's say it's a tournament, and suddenly at 12:05 they're throwing in 7 pies into the oven, and those have to like cook and then be eaten, and you've scheduled the tournament so tight that everybody's scarfing, burning their mouths, and throwing stuff away. It makes for a very negative experience.
I think that happened at the Nova Open, didn't it? That pizza place that was right next door?
Yeah, it's right there. And
Gazzelli's.
so, Nova
It was
Open.
good pizza, but man, you had to wait forever.
You got to wait forever, and then whoopsie daisies. Oh, your event is starting, and you're going to lose if you don't ditch your lunch. So just you got to think through all the like the if thens, and the more than you would like doing lunch on your own in another way.
Yeah, I'm going to go out there, though, on a limb and gather that if somebody's listening to this podcast and they're thinking about hosting an event, they're going to start with a small event.
That's true.
So
That's fair.
I would say maybe the takeaway is just don't forget the amenities.
Don't forget the amenities.
Don't forget the amenities.
Plan your food. And you know what? If you've got to charge a little bit in a ticket to make sure that like food's there or snacks are there, just do it. But what I recommend, what we did with GuildCon, which is, again, don't plan this alone. Right? Plan it with your buddies. Get a team together and figure it out among the team, like how you want to do your food. And again, we democratized lunches, like everybody brings something, and then dinners was like you're on your own, go figure it out. And we left plenty of time for dinner for people to go do that, and everybody was super happy with it. I think.
Would we do that again? Would we just do lunch on your own again and just say, hey, everybody get to know DoorDash or whatever mates or whatever? You know what I'm saying? Or would we do a group thing again? Because I was involved in the food last year, and I think it worked out. But as the guy who helped plan and organize it, part of me is like, can I just make everybody go DoorDash? Because the delivery capacity has really changed a lot in the last few years, guys.
It has, but I think it's, I think it just depends on what size event you're running, and are these people in your current community? If you're all friends already, you can just plan a meal together and do a sign up.
Yeah.
If nobody knows anyone, maybe it's not the right approach, and you just say, hey, DoorDash is easy, we're all going to do that.
Yeah.
Or Grubhub or whatever.
Well, the big factor too, Dan, in my opinion, was that we had games all day Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
We didn't
right?
want people to have to leave or.
Yeah, and the thing is that we looked at the numbers that were going to be there in the morning and even arriving for games in the afternoon, and we said there's 10 people that are going to be there versus 30 people in the evening.
Yeah.
And so it was like 10 people, we can scrounge sandwiches together for 10
that's
people.
easier to do.
And so I think the numbers really drove the lunches because we weren't having to provide for an army. So cooking like chili dogs was easy. Putting together sandwiches was easy, and you didn't have to leave for it. Like you could be playing a little mini game like in between your sessions while you're scarfing a sandwich, and that was a lot of fun.
Well, as the guy who did a bunch of the cooking, and I know Jay did it last time or did it the time before, I felt like it kind of upped the stress level for me because now if I screw up lunch, then like I've got 20 of my friends that are like, well, thanks for nothing.
Thanks,
even
Dan.
though we didn't charge a nickel. No one, it was just, hey, bring stuff if you want to bring stuff.
So I would say, just figure out what the size event here is. Use signups, which kind of gets to, use signups for a lot of things. Use signups to figure out how many people are coming. Use signups for food. Also use signups to see how many people want to run events. If you want to have people that want to be GMs, they want to, hey, I got a one shot I want to run, or I got a board game I really like, I want to play it. Use those signups to do that. Just use the free tools, man. It makes it easy, and you can get an idea of who wants to do what very quickly.
Yeah, I think the planning for GuildCon 2 was much easier from GuildCon 1 because we learned lessons, the first time that we did it, and, imparting our free knowledge and lessons of running a multifaceted gaming convention, right? They had board games, RPGs, war games, card games. Like we had all sorts of different games going on, right? We kind of took a little bit of a Gen Con approach of saying like, hey, as long as we got people to run games, like we'll offer them, and then we'll see how it goes. We'll see how people sign up for it, and if not a lot of people sign up for that event, well, we'll just shut that one down, and we'll move people into a different one, right? Not a big deal. So I think what was interesting when we first started planning the events out is we started with the RPGs because we knew that our gaming group really wanted to do a bunch of RPGs. And the first thing that we said, okay, let's do 2 RPGs per day, minimum, right? We'll do one in the afternoon, one in the evening. And so we had 2 RPGs, and then we had a couple other people say like, oh, I want to run an additional one on like a Tuesday or this. And we're like, okay, that's cool. If you want to do that, no problem. We'll put it out again. We'll put it out there, and we'll see who signs up for what. And as we get closer, we may have to shut down some events because there's just a lack of interest or lack of available people to play, depending on the day or time. And we'll kind of go from there. So we started with the RPGs, and then we started filling in board games after that, and we kind of chunked it out. And I think by doing that, it gave us all sort of a map of how to fill in time slots of like where I wanted to run. Like I knew I wanted to play this RPG at this time, so I can run a board game the session before it, right? And we even came up with like hard session times, right? We had a morning, afternoon, evening session, and they were hard-coded of like 8 a.m. to noon was morning, 1 to 5 was afternoon, 6 to 10 was evening. And so like even chunking that out helped a lot.
Yeah, I think 2-hour chunks with 2 and 4-hour chunks are really good for gaming conventions. You're going to have 2-hour board games. You're going to have 4-hour board games. Most RPGs probably want to push themselves to 5 hours, but one-shots at a convention can be done in 4 hours, and I think that's a pretty standard time block even at Gen Con. And it worked well for us for GuildCon to do those 2 and 4-hour blocks.
And let me
Yeah.
So
recommend.
I would recommend that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that was it. Go ahead.
The blocks. I think my recommendation is if you have thought about running and being a GM at a larger convention, you might. And I've done a large convention. I mean, I kind of I ran a very long RPG session at KublaCon, and that was like my first convention. I decided to bite off a 5-hour game like a crazy person. I think it's much better if you're doing a small convention with your local group to try things out as the GM. The stakes are lower. You're going to have a lot more fun. And if you go to a bigger convention and you want to get the cheaper badge for running games, you could totally do that and have some miles on your odometer before you jump right in there. And you'll probably be more successful, and you'll be able to accommodate kind of more of the random type people who will show up at a larger convention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. It's funny because we have a guy in our group, Casey, who decided to run that Wendy's RPG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like that was the first time he'd ever DM'd.
Yeah, he
I
never
think.
even
I mean, maybe
GM'd a game before, and he started it with a rando group. It was great.
Rando group with the Wendy's free Wendy's download RPG, right? And you guys were having a blast with it.
We killed it. Every minute of that was pure glee. But have we gone back to it? No, we kind of got it out of our system, and it was great. So,
yeah. But that's what's great about a convention, right? Is that you can do things that you want to do. So yeah, like you said, Jason, right? We came up with a schedule. We talked about who would run what, and we came up with PLCs for each event, individual event within the broader convention that we were kind of running, right? The broader event. And we used Sign Up Genius. We used event tickets. We had people who were willing to be the POCs for their event and tell them okay, you can bring your own character for this game, but it's got to be X level and can't be XYZ or whatever it is. And so it ended up working really well. I felt like once we got it going, there wasn't a lot to actually running the event. I didn't feel like I needed to be a circus ringleader and get people to where they needed to go. We all just kind of looked at our phones and the Sign Up Genius. We're like, oh, I've got this event this afternoon. Cool. Who's running that? Okay, great. Right over there? Okay, sweet. I know where I'm going. So I thought that with the tools that we had, it really helped run itself once it got in motion.
Yep, that's all you need to do. Even at big conventions, everybody just looks at what they signed up on their own digital device. It's going to run itself once it gets there. It's really just got to make sure people are putting the cans in the trash and not spilling drinks, and
right.
If it's your basement. But
it was your basement. It was your basement.
But yeah, so I think, I think everything we've talked about applies to, maybe the kind of what we call a mini con, where is it a multi-day event? Even if it's a single day event, still use a Sign Up Genius. I would recommend, unless it's just a 4-hour session. At which point I'm saying you're just having a game night. But if it's more than a game night, if it's a full day, you're having multiple people, use a Sign Up Genius. Or whatever your digital choice is, and let people kind of govern themselves once they get there. Don't stress out about it. Everybody's there to have fun anyways.
So I'm going to just add this really quick. Another advantage of having those digital tickets like Sign Up Genius or whatever, is that you're not going to overbook events, right?
Yeah, right.
And you're not going to have hurt feelings because it's I really wanted to play this, and I showed up first, but I didn't have a ticket. You know what I mean?
First come, first serve's not a good idea.
No, so everybody knows who's in it. If there's even space, right? Somebody might be like, "Oh, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it," so I got a free space, and then somebody else could jump in.
That's the difference between this and game night. When it's game night, the first Saturday of every month, whatever you come, it's if you show up on time, you can get in on a game that you want to play, right? That's just, everyone knows it's just how it goes. But a convention is not something that's happening every first Saturday of the month. So, if I'm going to take time out of my day or out of work or whatever to go to a convention, I want to be guaranteed that I can play something I want to play. So, use the geniuses. Don't do the first come, first serve. Use the tickets.
Yep.
It's worth it. Everyone will be happy.
Yeah. So, is there any thoughts about we talked about basically a multi-threaded event, right? Which is like RPGs, board games, like running basically a mini convention from your house. What about a single thread event? What do you think there?
I don't
This
know.
like a tournament or
tournament.
like
Yeah.
something like that.
I don't know if there's much difference. I think that there are a lot of tools out there, like BCP, Best Coast Pairing app, is a great tool for running tournaments or single-threaded events. Even if you're doing like an adventure day with D&D, I think that there are. I think you can still use it, use those sign-up tools to get you going. I think it still applies. Obviously, the things like amenities and such. Yeah, might be a little easier to solve if you only have logistics for one day, but
Yeah, but
generally, I think you can still follow the digital route. And in this day and age, most
Yes.
people are curious on the digital route. The only thing I would say that you want to move away from digital for is like player aids. Like if you're going to sit down at an RPG table, like it's going to be so much nicer if you just give someone a one-shot character
Right.
sheet
Yep.
to actually have in front of them with a pencil.
Yeah, and I was going to say real quick that the thing you're going to have to also think about that you don't have to worry about in like a mini convention is prizes at tournament type thing.
Mhm.
So you
Yeah.
have to think about the prize support. You have to think about like maybe door gifts. You might have to think about like other like best painted gifts that you might give. So I think that there can be a little bit more work that goes into I don't know if it's more work, it's different work, right? Like you don't have to worry about all these different kinds of events, but you really have to worry about making that one event run well,
Right, and that's where I would say use the tools that someone else has already made.
Yeah,
There's
right.
no reason to reinvent the wheel on running tournaments and
Yeah.
competitive events and things.
And the same advice for getting people to help you if you need help comes into play. Because if you're running a tournament, you need people who know the rules just as well as your smartest player there. So you got to be ready to go on the rules because there's a referee function. And there's also a fairness function when you're determining winners. So you have to think about that as well. You have to come up with a system that's transparent and everybody knows is fair. We talked about apps before, but there's if you're not using that app, you've got to come up with a useful way to go. So many hands make light work when it comes to events, tournaments. In fact, and it usually means one or two people have to take one for the team and say, I love this game. I wish I could play in this, but what this event needs is somebody to be the referee, and that needs to be me.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully this kind of gave you an idea, our listeners, of how to set up and run an event. Maybe it's because I had done stuff for the rugby team that I was the president of for a little while, and we did banquets and rugby tournaments and things like that. I actually didn't think that it was that hard to actually run an event though. We used the tools that we needed to. We had a good team of people that were willing to help, and so I think we had a few conference calls that we needed to do just to sort out some of the logistics. But once people said, "I'll take this on, I'll take that on," like Dan, I think you and John took the lunch planning and kind of ran with that. And I took the sign up genius part of it and kind of ran with that. And we kind of went through and Jason, like you were obviously worried about the venues and it was at your house. So we kind of figured stuff out. So like I didn't have to worry about tables and chairs, and neither did you, Dan. That was Jason's job, right? And so we spread the wealth a little bit, and it ended up, I didn't think it was actually that difficult. I thought GuildCon 2 was actually an easier lift than the first one because we were a little bit more informal in how we did things. And it was a little bit smaller too, right? I think we only had like 15, 20 people.
And you guys had a smaller work committee. And I was watching you guys kick your own asses, and I'm like, oh man, these guys need help.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah.
So you have to be willing to let a little bit of, you have to be a little less control oriented and say, if the food sucks, it's because Dan and John messed it up, and you have to kind of go with that. So
lynch them.
Sadly, but that's just true. I mean, you just gotta, you have to have faith in people to come through, especially when everybody's volunteering.
Yeah. So hopefully this kind of made you aware of what goes into an event plan. if you've got questions, if you've got ideas, we'd love to hear about them. Hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. Share this episode with some friends who are thinking about possibly running an event, because we promise you, like, this could help them avoid some pitfalls that are out there, ones that we found as we were going on. But yeah, hit us up, let us know, because we'd be happy to give some more insight and let you know some successes and failures that we even went through a little bit more if you've got questions. So thank you for listening. We love you, our listeners, and thanks for making this podcast what it is, and have a good night.
See ya.
Bye now.